As an administrator, it is very important for you to know how to use firewalls. What is a firewall in the first place? A firewall is simply a software or a hardware that filters traffic with respect to predetermined rules. That means you give it rules in which you want it to either accept traffic or deny outbound traffic. So we are going to look at a type of firewall today known as Uncomplicated Firewall, which is abbreviated as UFW. How do you get this Uncomplicated Firewall installed in your Ubuntu operating system? You simply do a sudo apt install Uncomplicated Firewall. You give it the password and you hit enter and you wait for it to load all its packages. And now it tells me that Uncomplicated Firewall already exists and it has the latest version. So after doing this, I am going to clear my screen, and then since I want to avoid typing sudo at all costs, I am going to do a sudo su so that I can elevate my privileges to root privileges, and then I'll clear my screen again to make my work neat. And the first thing or the next thing we want to do after installing our firewall is to make sure that we check if we can use this firewall or how to use this firewall. So I'm going to do UFW or H, which stands for help, to see the various commands in which we can use in installing or in filtering traffic. So you can see we can either use the command enable to enable the firewall, we can disable the firewall, we can use a default arguments, that is to set default policies. We can also log in the information. Logging here means that we can carry out a record of every traffic, whether it is inbound or outbound traffic that may have been sent either from our network or that is coming into our network. We have a record of it so that we can be able to know which IP address is malicious or which IP address tried to get into our network and which one is communicating with which device out of the network. And then we have allow, we have deny, we have limit arguments here. Now, what is this limit here? Let's say, for example, that sometimes when malicious actors may want to gain access into system, they will keep on probing that system with passwords and username to see if they can be able to brute force that particular system. So we want to set a limit in our network so that if a malicious actor probes our network maybe 2 or 3 times, he is going to be prevented from gaining access to that network. So that is what the limit is talking about. You can see other rules or other commands like status and all of this. Now that we have known all these commands, what is the first thing we are going to do? We are going to look at the status command to see if this firewall is up and running. So I'm going to do UFW, which stands for Uncomplicated Firewall, and I type status to see if it is up and running. And you can see that the status is disabled or is inactive here. So what do we do? Let me clear my screen again. And then if you wanted to enable this firewall, you do Uncomplicated Firewall status enable, and then you hit enter. But I am not going to enable it right now because I want to set my rules first before I enable it. Why are you doing this as a security administrator? You are doing this because you want to make sure that you don't enable these firewalls and maybe you want to set certain rules like web traffic and it kicks you out of the network. Meanwhile, you are still trying to set these firewall rules. So it is always advisable that you set the rules and then now you can enable the firewall. So I am going to remove this and I'm going to do Uncomplicated Firewall. And what we want to do now is we want to set the first rule here. And the first rule is we want to completely deny outbound traffic. So I'm going to do Uncomplicated Firewall default deny incoming traffic. I want to deny incoming traffic completely first. Why am I doing this? Because I want to set rules. When I do this, I will now start filtering traffic with respect to or deciding who I will let in and who I will decide not to let in. So I'm going to hit enter, and then it says there is an error which I made. Let me clear the screen again. I bring back that command which I used, and then let me look at what I did which I wasn't supposed to do. It says Uncomplicated Firewall default, you can see that there's an error in typing that default there. So I'm going to go back there and put an E here, and then I hit enter. And now it says default incoming policy change to deny, which is very okay. Now, the next thing you may want to do now is that we want to look at the outbound traffic. Which devices should be communicating with which devices in the wild or over the internet. So I want to also do a default deny. So let me put back that deny. Outbound or outgoing traffic. Remember, why are we doing this? This is like the baseline. And then we want to start setting our rules from the first rule till the last rule. So I'm going to hit enter, and then it tells me that default outbound policy changed to deny. Everything is fine. Now we don't want to check the status because we have not yet enabled this firewall. If you check the status, you're going to see that it is inactive. We don't want to enable it now. We want to set our rules first, and then we can enable our firewalls and then do a review of everything. Now, after doing this, the next rule that we want to set is I am first of all going to clear my screen, and then we want to look at a rule like SSH, secure shell, which lets us to remotely communicate with devices over the internet or to remotely communicate with devices on the network. So what am I going to do? I am going to do Uncomplicated Firewall. I say allow port 22 which is TCP, allow TCP port 22, which is secure, and I'm going to hit enter, and it says that rules updated. And you can see that we have two things here. We have rules updated and rules updated version 6. This first rule here is for IPv4 IP addresses, and this second rule here is for IPv6 IP addresses. You don't want a situation whereby you block traffic from IPv4 and the malicious actor is using IPv6 to get into that network. That is the reason why you are seeing that by default my Ubuntu operating system updates both rules, which is good news. Now the next thing I want to do is that, let's say for example that I am an administrator. Now, after setting this rule here, what have I done? It means that anybody in the wild or anybody out there can connect, use secure shell to connect to my network. But is it a good security practice? I think it is not a good security practice. We should set a rule in a way that only the administrator or those with elevated privileges are given access to connect remotely to resources on my system. So what am I going to do? I am going to update this rule, or I am going to give it a new rule, which is going to be what? I am going to point it to a particular IP address. Let's say, for example, it could be an IP address like my Kali Linux IP address. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do Uncomplicated Firewall, and I give it allow from, and you give it the IP address which you want to give it. Let's say, for example, that it is the administrator's IP address. You give it 192.168.40.129. This is the IP address of my Kali Linux. Now, after giving it like this, you give it to any port 22 proto, and then it's a TCP connection, and then you hit enter. There is a mistake which I have committed. Let me see. Let me bring back that command, and you can see that I did not type allow here very well. So I'm going to go back to where we have allow, and I'm going to put allow there, and I hit enter. It says rules updated. Everything is fine. So what have I done here? Let me explain again. I am telling the Uncomplicated Firewall to allow traffic from my administrator, who is 192.168.40.129, to any port in our network using protocol or using secure shell, which is running on TCP. That is what that rule is simply saying there. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to look at my web traffic rules. So I want to set sudo. We're already having root privileges, so there's no need for setting sudo. So I'll do Uncomplicated Firewall. I do allow 443/TCP, and I hit enter. It tells me that my rule has been updated. Now, I am going to set port 80 for demonstration purposes, but it is not a good security practice. And at the end of this tutorial, you are going to know why I am setting port 80, which is insecure for web traffic. So please don't forget to watch this video till the end and make sure you subscribe to this channel as we proceed. So what is the next thing? I want to do sudo, no need for sudo, uncomplicated firewall. Let me just bring this uncomplicated firewall and I come here and I edit it to 80 and I hit enter. It says rules updated. Now the next thing is I want to look at my file transfer protocol. Now there are situations whereby you could have a legacy platform in your operating system. When I say a legacy platform, what do I mean? I mean that type of computer. It could be like a Windows computer or an outdated endpoint in your network, which does or which carries out a particular task, but which is vulnerable. But you think that it is much needed in the industry or in the organization, and you cannot do away with that legacy platform or with that operating system. So we want to set a specific role for it. So how are we going to do this? We are going to set a role that looks similar like the one we set for secure shell of port 22. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to remove this and I put 1. And what am I doing here? What I'm doing here is simply I'm telling the uncomplicated firewall to allow traffic from a legacy platform from an outdated computer. It could be 192.168.40.129, for example, to any port 21. So that is basically what we just did there. And we are telling it that it should transfer files because port 21 is for transmission of files. So I'm going to hit enter and it says rules updated. Now the next rule that we may want to check is the rule for MySQL. Now, when you are setting a rule like MySQL, for example, MySQL, I will urge that you set a deny for MySQL because you don't want that tomorrow you find your services up and running up there in the internet. People use tools like Shodan and they are capable of seeing devices running over the internet on certain protocols which they are not supposed to run on. So whenever or if we are setting MySQL, I am going to come here and I'm going to give it a deny instead of allow, and then I'll change the port number. My SQL's port number is 3306 if I am not mistaken, and then I'm going to hit enter and it says rules updated. After updating this rule, now we want to look at our DNS, which is the phone book of the internet. Take note that if we don't send rules for the DNS, it means that we may not be connected to the internet or we may not be able to browse very well over the internet. So I'm going to bring back this rule, and then instead of typing deny here, I am going to give it allow. Then I come here, since our DNS is in port 53, I give it a port number 53, and I hit enter, and it says rules updated. Now, what about our mail servers? What do we do as a security personnel? You are supposed to also set these mail server rules. So we are going to do a bring back this, and then I come to mail server here, and I'm going to give it port 25, which stands for simple mail transfer protocol. I bring back again. I'm going to be a little bit fast here because it's basically the same thing. Now I want to give it port 587, which is for secure mail submission. I hit enter, the rule is updated, and then I want to give it port, I bring back that line. I want to give it port 993, allow port 993, which is for post office protocol, which is used for mail transfer or for emails. So, and I hit enter. Now this protocol here is the latest version. Now you may want to deny traffic from the malicious, or deny traffic from the insecure port. What will you do? You do, instead of allowing traffic, you give deny here, and then you come here, and instead of giving 993, you give it 110. Now, what are we doing here? This is the same protocol, but now this protocol here is insecure. This is the post office protocol, which is used for emails. It is insecure. So we are telling the uncomplicated firewall to deny access to the post office protocol, which is insecure, and to grant access to the post office protocol running on port 993, which is secure. This could be version 3, if I'm not mistaken. So now the next thing I want to do is I want to hit enter, and it says that my role has been updated. What about synchronizing our time? Take note that time synchronization is very important in security, because we want to make sure that if, for example, there was a cybersecurity attack on our system, we want to know when it happened. Timestamp is very important. So I'm going to bring this role again, and then I am going to come here and I'm going to set 1, 2, 3. That is the protocol for timestamp, or let's set this time. And then now it does not run on TCP, it runs on UDP, and I hit enter. It says the role has been updated. Now, there is also what we call Telnet, which is very insecure. So what do? I want to deny Telnet. Telnet runs on port 23. So I'll give it 23 and I hit enter. So these are some of the rules as a security personnel that you have to make sure that you set them so as to ensure that traffic is filtered in your organization or in your network in a way that it is going to give absolutely access to those resources with respect to those protocols which we are setting here. So I am going to clear my screen, but before doing that, let me just clear my screen first. I want to bring this role and explain something here. Now, when you look at this one here, Uncomplicated Firewall allow from 192. Now, there is a situation whereby you could, or you may want to set a role and grant access to a particular network or to an entire network. So you are going to give it a subnet mask by giving it a 0, as you can now see here. You give it a / and then you give it 24. Now, what are you saying? You are now telling the Uncomplicated Firewall to allow traffic from this network to any port 21 using TCP form of transport. You can hit enter and it says the role has been updated. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear my screen, and then now there is something I would like us to do. We want to look at how to limit traffic, and we also want to look at how you can set traffic directly or specify traffic to certain applications in your system and deny traffic from certain applications in the system. So I'm going to do Uncomplicated Firewall, and I am going to do applications. Then I'm going to do list. I want to see the list of applications that are running on my Ubuntu system. And you can see that we have Apache, we have Apache Full, Apache Secure, and then we have CUPS. Now, we want to explicitly grant access to this Apache, but not grant access to these other applications here. So this is in the case where you're doing application filtering and not port filtering. So what are you going to do? We are going to do Uncomplicated Firewall. Then we are going to give it allow app, and then you give it Apache, and then you hit enter. It says there is need to. There is a mistake. I have made and committed an error here, which I would like to check. So I am now going to do Uncomplicated Firewall allow. I give it the codes, and then I specify the application which I want to let it or to grant access to it. So I give it Apache, and then I hit enter. It says the role has been updated. So what have I done here? I am giving access to Apache, and then I want to deny access to this one. So you could as well do Uncomplicated Firewall, and then instead of allowing here, what do? You do deny, and so on and so forth. So the next thing I want to do is this. I want to clear this, since I've already set that rule. And then now we want to make sure that as a security personnel, we are able to log our data. We are able to carry out a recording of every activity that we have taken place in our perimeter firewall or using this uncomplicated firewall. So how do you log your activity? You can do uncomplicated firewall, and then you do log and you hit enter. Now it comes back with this. Whenever you see it, it means that there was an error or there is an error which we may have committed and we have to correct that mistake. So what we are going to do uncomplicated, before doing this, let me clear my screen again. We are going to do uncomplicated firewall, login on, and I hit enter. It says login enabled. So this means that any activity that takes place in this network, for example, or in my operating system, I can be able to have a record of everything so that I can analyze after looking at the various traffic or looking at the various IP addresses as well as the various applications that are running. So now what we want to do now is that we want to look at the cases where we want to limit brute force. Remember that when we were using the uncomplicated firewall, when I type help here, you can see that I talked about limiting arguments here. So I will clear my screen again, and then I'll do uncomplicated firewall, and I do limit. I want to limit port 22 /TCP. What I'm doing here is that I want to reduce or limit the level of access or brute forcing that an attacker could attempt to securely or to gain access to our system remotely. So when I do this, it says my role has been set. Now, after having set all these roles, what is the next thing I'm going to do? I'm going to clear my screen again, and now what I want to do is I want to do uncomplicated firewall. I do status, and I do verbose, and I hit enter. It says it is inactive. So now we need to enable it before using this function or before using this verbose. So, or before checking the status. So I will do uncomplicated firewall enable. This is the first time we are enabling our firewalls. So I enable, and then now it says firewall is active and enabled. Now let us do uncomplicated firewall verbose or status. And now these are all the rules that we have been setting from the beginning of this tutorial here. And now you can see that port 80 is allowing traffic from everywhere, which is a bad security practice here. You can only allow port 80 if you are dealing with a legacy platform, or if, for example, it is a load balancer which is running on this port, and so on and so forth. So you can now see the various rules here. Now what I want to do is I want it to have numberings here. I want to get some numberings here to number them like from 1, 2, 3 and all of that. So how do you do this? You do uncomplicated firewall. Let me clear my screen, and I do a complicated firewall, and I do numbered, and I hit enter, It comes back with the same command. So what did I miss? Let me see. So to get this status numbered, what I'm supposed to do is I'll do uncomplicated firewall status numbered, and now look at the difference. You can now see that our firewall rows have been numbered from 1 to 27. Why are you doing this? Because if tomorrow you want to delete a role, let's say for example that we have a role like this port 80 which is running, which is vulnerable, and we want to deny or we want to delete this role, what are you going to do? It's simple. Uncomplicated firewall delete, and then you look at the number. That is, it is in number 4. So it means that role number 4 is running on port 80 and we want to delete this role. So I just type down here 4, and I hit enter. Now when I hit enter, it says deleting allow 80 running on TCP, proceed with operation. Yes, I want to proceed with the operation, so I'm going to give it yes. I give it yes, and I hit enter, and it says a role has been updated. So now if I go back now to status number, take note of that number 4. You now see that number 4 has been updated, and now we have port 21 running there. That is because I have removed port 80, which is running or which is a vulnerable port. So after setting all these roles, what is the next thing that I want to show you here? I have shown you how to do this. Now, if you want to delete roles, I have shown you already. If now you want to reset all these roles and set everything to default settings, meaning that you don't want all these roles, what do? You're just going to do Uncomplicated Firewall. But before doing this, make sure that you have subscribed to my channel, please. So you do Uncomplicated Firewall and you do reset, and you hit enter. It says resetting all roles to install default proceed operation, and we are coming to the end of our tutorial. I'm going to hit yes here and I hit enter, and that is everything that we have done. So if you check the status again, if I check the status number here, you see that firewall is inactive. So we have come to the end of our tutorial. This is how you set firewalls using Uncomplicated Firewalls. If you found this tutorial interesting, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this. Bye bye.